President Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, is speaking out. Cohen sat down with ABC's George Stephanopoulos for an off-camera interview over the weekend in which he said his family and country come first. This comes after the FBI raided Cohen's home, office, and hotel in April as part of an investigation into his business dealings. Cohen has been a longtime fixer for President Trump, but in recent weeks, the president has sought to distance himself from Cohen. In response to that, Cohen said, quote, "To be crystal clear, my wife, my daughter, my son, and this country have my first loyalty." Joining me now from Washington is Hunter Walker. He is a White House correspondent for Yahoo. Hunter, thanks for coming on with this. Cohen once said that he'd take a bullet for President Trump. Do you sense a change of tone here?
Yeah, this is just the most recent indication of sort of a growing distance between both men. You saw Cohen officially relinquish this position he had on the RNC. You had finally, after a long period where it just wasn't clear, the White House definitively state that Cohen is no longer the president's personal attorney. And now this interview where not only did he make those comments that you highlighted, but he also said, you know, he rejects anybody who would vilify the FBI, said that even as they raided his office, you know, he thanked them for their service. And that's a real departure from what we've seen from the president, where he's, you know, criticized the Cohen raid and other aspects of the Justice Department investigation into him and his inner circle as a witch hunt. And Cohen really rejected that. So there's definitely, you know, I think we could say it's a growing rift.
Well, we need to be clear that Cohen is not charged with anything yet. Do you think indicating he'll cooperate is a legal strategy that could possibly be problematic for the president? Or do you think he's just really facing financial difficulties with all the legal fees that are piling up?
Right. So there's a couple things to unpack here. The first is that, you know, we know through my reporting and others that Cohen is being looked at for several things, including his own financial dealings, which include an extensive taxi cab business, his own real estate holdings. He's a pretty wealthy guy. He's also getting investigated for some things that have gone on in his dealings with the president, including his efforts to try to develop a Trump Tower in Moscow, and also these payments to the women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. So he's kind of facing, you know, a probe on several different fronts there. The legal costs are mounting. I think two ways this interview is being read is either, you know, Cohen indicating he might be willing to cooperate, or potentially Cohen sending a message to the president, because as you alluded to earlier, he's very known as a fiercely loyal pit bull for Trump. Every other comment he's made is complimentary, and this may be a sign to the president that, you know, he's not going to, as he said in the interview, be anyone's, quote, punching bag.
Yeah, you better take care of me or I can hurt you, basically, is the unstated code there. Let's take a turn to foreign policy now. President Trump is congratulating the winner of Mexico's presidential election, saying he looks forward to working with him. Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has vowed to take a tougher stance against the U.S. president. So, Hunter, what does this election mean for U.S.-Mexico relations? Do you think things are going to get better, or do you think he's just been holding fire until President Trump says something to insult him?
Right. You know, I think this is most important when it comes to trade. Just like we've seen President Trump say he's going to have sort of an America First policy when it comes to trade, doesn't want to do bad deals, Lopez Obrador has hinted the same for his country, that, you know, he wants to renegotiate and have Mexico come first. He feels like they've been taken advantage of. So I think that's the most stark shift down there. I have seen some coverage of people saying, you know, Lopez Obrador, he is a leftist populist and he's an anti-Trump president. But the truth is, especially given the president's rhetoric, there is no non-anti-Trump candidate in Mexico. I mean, the current administration has said they won't pay for the wall. They've said very, very tough things to the president. So the relationship is already not good, but I do think, you know, he's going to be a tougher person to deal with on trade.
Yeah, and Trump really wasn't an issue in that presidential campaign anyway. All right, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reportedly preparing for a third visit to North Korea, but let me play some sound right now of President Trump talking about this over the weekend.
I got along really well with Chairman Kim. We had a great chemistry. We really had Chairman Kim.
But do we believe him, Mr. President?
I made a deal with him. I shook hands with him. I really believe he means it. Now, is it possible? Have I been in deals? Have you been in things where people didn't work out? It's possible.
Now, he sounded very confident when he came back from the summit in Singapore, but now he's back to we'll see. The timeline for denuclearization remains unclear. Do you think the confidence is waning?
Yeah, I mean, one thing he said that was extremely interesting, he literally said, you know, we went over there, we met, we didn't do anything. And it's a real stark contrast from particularly his victory lap tweet that he sent out as he was returning from Singapore when he met with Kim Jong-un and he said, North Korea is no longer a nuclear threat. This was a big, big retreat from that claim of victory. And particularly since it comes as there's indications from, you know, satellite photos that North Korea is stepping up uranium enrichment. So I think it's definitely fair to say we seem to have taken a step back and the White House is projecting a lot less confidence about what they may have extracted from North Korea. Which was
what was said after that summit was that North Korea has made these agreements again and again and broken them, and he was saying, well, not this time. This time I trust this guy. But all right, lastly,
and another thing that's important is when he says he didn't do anything, you know, we might not have accomplished anything in terms from them backing down, but he did do something in terms of agreeing not to do these these military exercises with South Korea.
Right.
So, you know, we did give something up, and now we're acknowledging that we haven't gotten anything in return.
Something tangible in contrast to something maybe, basically, is what was going on there.
And we could retreat from that, but, you know, we took a much more concrete step than they have.
We did. National Security Advisor John Bolton is back from Russia. Here's what he had to say about Russian meddling in the 2016 election ahead of the upcoming Trump-Putin summit.
The election meddling issue was definitely something we talked about, and I thought it was significant.
Now, meddling now.
Yes, absolutely. Meddling in the 2016 election and our concern about what they're doing in the 2018 election. And what President Putin said, through a translator, of course, but what he said was there was no meddling in 2016 by the Russian state.
Very little happens without Vladimir Putin's okay.
Well, I think that's an interesting statement. I think it's worth pursuing. I'm sure the president will want to pursue it.
And both presidents have a summit later this month. So, Hunter, do you expect much to come of this particular issue during that sit-down, or are they just going to kind of avoid that elephant in the room?
I mean, I certainly don't expect much to come from it because while we've seen the U.S. intelligence community unequivocally declare that there was meddling, as we've seen from Bolton, you know, the White House is really the last force that's interested in splitting hairs on this. And the president has explicitly said he believes Putin. So I'm not sure they would press on this. One of the more interesting comments that I saw Bolton make about this was, you know, he said the meeting between Trump and Putin would be unstructured, there'd be a lot of one-on-one time, but also that it was a chance to get away from the noise in Washington, sort of referring to the Mueller probe and other issues. And it almost seems like they're explicitly acknowledging they'd love to have another headline to get away from some of the drama at home. And I think that's right now the clearest thing it seems like we could accomplish from this summit.
It's an overused word, but it is all about the optics, isn't it? Hunter Walker, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.